She didn't bring anything with her, so they only had the wardrobe that the mom and her mother and father had hanging in the closet. So all of the clothes that I wear and the boys wear were a derivative of what was hanging in the closet. And so we tried as much as we could to stay true to that and just set with our costume designer, just set what those clothes would be, and then let's make outfits for everybody. And let's ask ourselves, how would mama mend their pants? How would she make, long pants for adults, smaller to fit them? Like, what were her baby clothes like? Like, what did she wrap them in? And, how many things are gone now because she's used them from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, now that they're 10, like, what's left? All of those conversations were had, and we tried to be as authentic as we could while keeping the boys safe, void of real dialogue. You are really going to be immersed in watching these characters do what they do. And rightfully so. Growing up like this in the middle of nowhere for 10 years, these boys don't have the normal access to language. You don't talk normally. Like, you don't sit down at dinner and have family conversation about your day because you've gone nowhere but to the end of your rope, So there's a monotony to it that doesn't lend for big conversations about big ideas and big thoughts, And mama wants to keep their thoughts as small as she can, to keep them there as long as she can, to protect them, right? So it was fun to sort of get into that world of monotony and what does that really look like. And I always knew that it meant there's not a lot of talking going on. They say what they need to say, but that's basically it. And the script definitely reflects that. He was wonderful to work with as a director. I think what I loved about him was that he remained open to my ideas of who this character is. I really fought hard to have us have this sound to our language. It was very important as a Black woman and as a Black family that we sound like that, and really being left in the woods and growing, that we had that sound that felt authentic. You like to scare yourself in the safe environment of a movie theater, right? Because you know it's not real, but yet, you get to go on this journey as if it might be. And for this movie, because you're gonna get more than a horror movie, more than scares, you're gonna get Alex Aja and the best that he does, and you're guaranteed to have some chills and thrills because he really is doing that in a masterful way these days. But you are going to get a story that has heart. I think you're going to fall in love with these boys. You're going to, I think, love the heart of this family, the struggle that they're facing. I think you'll connect to mama. Even if you're not a mother, you'll connect to a mother loving her children so much and wondering if this is real and has she caused it, and and can she do it, can she fix it? And so I think it'll have, for the people that don't normally go to horror movies, I think this is a different kind of horror movie. It's much, much more than horror. It was a really good day to work with Will Catlett, and I thought he was spot on for Papa. He has just enough edge in him that would allow us to believe, oh yeah, something went on. Kind of gnarly in the old world between the two of them. He carries something about him that makes you fear and revere him in a way. And he certainly brought that to this character. But he's also just a fine actor, so he was able to walk the balance of evil and also having us understand what Mama would have been attracted to him for in the first place, like what drew her to him in the first place. So he's got just enough charisma with enough edge for the evil to make a character, I think, that the audience will understand. what Mama is going through with these boys is based on the life that was put upon her, the love or lack of love that she got from her own parents. So going into the world and not being fully equipped and aware of how to navigate herself, she now finds herself back in the middle of nowhere with these two boys, doing the best she can when she was only given what she got. And she's trying to sort of break those cycles in some way. She's trying to do much better for them that was done for her, but not all, but also questioning in her own mind, is this the right thing, and is this real? But also acknowledging that she's too terrified to find out if it's real. So I think she has this constant battle inside of her, and I think another theme is I think that's what motherhood is really all about. I know I battle almost daily with decisions that I have to make as a mother, and I ask myself, is this the right thing to do? Is this the best for my child? Am I doing better than what was done for me? Am I breaking the generational, trauma cycles of my growing? Am I doing exactly what my mother did, or am I, dealing with that and trying to do better for my children? Or am I just repeating the cycle? I ask myself that constantly. And I think you'll see that Mama struggles with that. And I think that's very relatable, especially to other mothers and other.
Evil itself sort of takes the form of sort of a snake, and I know. And so I wanted to have papers that sort of had the feel of movement, or slithering through the grass, or some have more of a scale-like sort of illustrations on them, and some, including in Mama's room and the bathroom, actually have sort of snake heads inside the wallpapers that we designed. He had a pretty interesting take on the script, and he really felt it would kind of fit into either almost a fable, fairy tale sort of environment. So the art department in general really sort of embraced that, and so hopefully, as you see in the designs, it's the house itself and the environment sort of have a bit of more of a mystical sort of edge to them, or sort of harken back and sort of feel maybe a little bit like a fairy tale illustration. Sort of the style inside, it's older wallpaper designs, and what we were kind of looking for, other than just this color, is sort of a more serpentile sort of snake-like features, which I kind of wanted to bring in as sort of a little sort of hidden or not so hidden sort of element that sort of ran through the film. Really, one of the main reasons we picked, that spot is the woods and its relationship. I know even on the last, on Horns, that I'd worked with Alex on previously, we had a forest where we built a tree house, and it was heavy moss as well. So I know he had an inclination for that sort of look, and it's a spectacular look, and really feels, it captures, if it's backlit, it captures the light. If it's, if there's a little bit of smoke, the moss really stands out. So I think it's a very kind of a moody choice that is a great element for.
it's a very unique script that on paper even might be unique for a studio to make, but they believed in it from day one, and it just kind of blossomed from there. The script got better and better with their involvement, and then as we brought Alex and Hallie on, better with them as well. But I was also very drawn to this story about two brothers that are twins. I'm a father of fraternal twin girls, and they're very different. There's a Samuel and there's a Nolan amidst them, but two brothers that see the world very differently, and they don't just share DNA, they've shared the exact same upbringing in the sense of there's mama in the house in the woods, and they are completely different.
Nolan we had doing drawings all the time, so his space has sort of a lot of charcoal drawings that one of our illustrators did. In his bedroom itself, he has actually the map of their world, which is sort of an interesting thing, which includes the house and essentially as far as they've ever been, since it's only 300 feet or whatever the length of the rope is. That's as far as they've gone. But he has it laid out on his wall above his bed, and then the rest of his space is sort of decorated with his drawings and drawing implements, etc. And Samuel is much more of an organizer, classifier sort of personality. So he's collecting elements and bones and feathers and whatever, and has placed them in a fairly organizational fashion on his side of the room. The research on protective symbols and such is sort of real. It's not based in fairy tale, and then the fairy tale research would be more like, I guess it's more fable or more like stories from that have been like Grimm's fairy tales or what have you. That really, it was fun to go in and see some, and some illustrations are actually used as props in the show, but to look at the illustrations, broad amount of different illustrators, and sort of not go too far down the hole, the rabbit hole of what that would be. It still needed to feel like it was real in some sense, but to definitely have elements of that sort of illustrations in the sets themselves.
We spent so long kind of getting in the same headspace on everything, from story to costumes to music to mythology and backstory to her character, that no one will ever know specifically in terms of what's exposited versus just us as a filmmaking group. And as any actress worth her salt will do, on the day there'll still be ideas or thoughts, and literally the last scene she filmed was her as the evil towards the end approaching Nolan, and her and Alex were going back and forth on one specific line, and then her last take, I feel like they got exactly what we've been trying to get to. And she's such a pro and has done this so many times, but I think she also saw something really personal and again unique, and something that she could make wholly her own. And it was just awesome to see someone do that. And I say all this to just say, like, when we started shooting, it was all collaborative, and so much of it had already been worked out beyond the script, just day-to-day conversations. And I think that's the benefit of having just an actress and performer and producer, which she is in the movie, who really cares and connects to it. Percy did a callback with both Hallie and Alex, and essentially they cast him in the room, and we watched the footage after, and we agreed. And he was sort of a late in the process discovery, and whereas AJ is someone who we had been looking at, and we had kept bringing him back, and he had been in the mix, and we read a few kids opposite Percy in the end, and like on the D-Day where we had to pick who was going to be Samuel, it was sort of like almost as if over this, like, call it, I don't know, 5-6 week process of him engaging on it, like, he just popped on that day. And it was like, we were all sitting in that room at Lionsgate. We were like, this is it. With those guys, with Alex and Maxime, and their like 20-year+ partnership, because Alex had in his head, you know, we saw it get sketched out and built, and as they shot each thing on the day, I was just constantly blown away by not just how thoroughly they could cover a scene, but how often within a scene, how many times a day, I was like, man, this is beautifully framed and beautifully lit. And like, will the horror movie audience even appreciate how well constructed this is, which I think they will. But yeah, no, their approach to it was very, I think, tonally in line with what was in the script, and I think showcased them and the world around it. You know, these dynamics are pretty universal and are sort of an access point into a very, very unique setting and rule system. And I think in the end, we always talk about, okay, if there was no evil, which we might interpret, if there never was, and it was just these 3 people living there, they need to be interesting enough so that I would watch that straight drama movie. And I do think that this movie has that on display pretty thoroughly, and then just the ability to, at any point that it wants to or the story needs to, it can go into more terrifying places. But so much of it through the point of view of, you know, children, you know, losing their innocence and starting to see the world differently. When you can watch a movie of any genre and deeply connect with a family of characters, that's always a treat. And I think that they're going to get to have that experience and then get brought to a place of just absolute terrifying scares, and feel like they've gotten to see a great horror movie, but that still has profound messaging and backing and operating in a real sort of classic coming-of-age way. It's fun to bring on a writer-director into the role of really just a director when there's a great script, because I think he recognized immediately what was so great on a storytelling level, the mythology, and yet, you know, as he made these tiny adjustments to come from a place of story and not just visuals, knowing we need to keep, you know, have a little bit more of a scare here, or, you know, more momentum in this section of the script, or whatever it might be, keeping a thread alive. He was always super respectful and protective of the script that predated him, and yet I thought he found really smart ways of always being additive to it.
the way the movie is made and the way her character is in the center of the script, I couldn't imagine another way to collaborate with her. Like, I couldn't imagine collaborating with someone that's so important without having her being part of the process of casting the kids, having her being part of like how we're going to finish the movie to the final cut. It was really important to work together. Because, you know, making a movie and telling a story is really about collaboration and collaboration with people that share the same vision with you. And that was the case, so then everything went quite, you know, perfectly and in a natural way. All movies that I've made in the past, like The Hills Have Eyes or Piranha or High Tension or Maniac, are like movies that are really like intense, bloody, brutal, very visual. This one is way more, I would say, scary in a hunting way. I think the fear will stay with you long after you watch the movie. It's not about the graphic nature of it. It's about like the theme that it touch and how like I think it will play on your own psychology. And for me, I mean, at least because I cannot say or pretend to know what people want to see. I can only, you know, tell myself what I would like to see as a moviegoer, and sometimes I'm lucky and other people like share the same feeling. So I had this experience reading the script, and I hope people will have this experience like, you know, watching the movie. I would say that Holly was definitely like the center, the anchor of this movie. And I cannot, I mean, it sounds like a very common answer to say, you know, when you do interviews, that she was like the only one I can see. She was, because she managed to bring all this kind of layered and contradiction within a character that's so complex. The thing is that she came to the project almost like in the same time that I came to the project, falling in love with the story. And when we met for the first time, she really was like, oh, I want to be sure that you're going to not compromise on the character. I want to be sure that we're going to do exactly what's on the page, and even more that we're going to develop. And I knew there that it was kind of like the perfect collaboration, because together we could resist and maintain the movie up to, you know, like the movie that you have today. We saw a lot of very talented young actors, but it's really after, you know, like when it's obvious, it's obvious. And I remember the day we had Percy audition, and we were all like looking at him, and by the end of the audition we were all like in tears, and he was, you know, it was sure that he was in the movie. He was everything that Nolan needs to be. He was fragile and rebellious in the same time. He was strong and kind of having this, he reminded me so much of Ali, in fact. And that was kind of like the exact way I was picturing the character. And when Anthony came along, like right after, it was the same feeling. Like, oh, it's completely different from Percy. He's a different person. He has a full different way of behaving. He has a different, but it was exactly what we were looking for Samuel. Someone who will be here to enforce Mama's rules. Someone who will be here to believe and be the favorite boy, and create that kind of jealousy between the two of them. So it was just, you know, I mean, this movie is really about three characters. So to see them together was, you know. We tried to create a world that is very immersive, where we, you know, put a lot of work into the detail of the sound, of the music, of like things that you don't really necessarily see. We decided to shoot the movie in 65, which is a very wide sensor, to have like all the details of that forest around us, but also all the detail of the interior. And it's a very rich movie visually, but also the experience of being in a room and sharing the tension with all the people around you, feeling that the temperature is raising, feeling like people on the edge of their seats, not knowing where you go, is very different from watching. I mean, a good horror movie is always great, even, you know, on TV or whatever. But to see it in the theater, it's unique. It's something that there is no other genre that gives. After my first read, it was very clear, like the interpretation I had to you know, from the movie. But then talking to producers, to the studio, to the actors, I realized that everyone has like a slight different interpretation of what the script was telling and what the story was telling. And I thought it was really interesting. And it reminded me that how like you know, like classical fairy tale from centuries ago that we're still telling our children, that we're still reading as we are growing up, are doing the same thing. They have multiple interpretation, but they are also here because they are here to kind of help us to understand, like a monster in a fairy tale become a way to accept or develop something that's like kind of hard to grasp, you know, when you're a child. And somehow our movies, some at least, have this same kind of function today in a very dark and kind of like a bleak world that we're living in. They bring like a way to exercise your fear. They also bring like you know, they go beyond just entertainment. It's just like a way to become like a psychological tool to confront our darkness, to confront who we are, and to understand a little bit more about the relationship. The reason why I wanted to make this movie is because I thought that the way sometimes you have to embrace the darkness of your parents, of your mother, to be able to cut the rope and move on, was something that felt very universal. Felt like not necessarily for mother, but for parents in general. As a child and as a parent myself, I had the same kind of questioning all the time. You know, am I protecting my son too much? Am I by doing that, like giving him the fear that are like something that I don't want him to have? It's that questioning, and I feel that the movie, even that story, has like this reach that's way wider than the usual horror movie. So the evil, I mean, that's a big subject. The evil is many things and can be very patient. I have in my interpretation of evil as you know, something that's very psychological and something that just comes from inside you. It's like the darkness that we carry. It's not something that absolutely exists in the real world. It's been a conversation during the whole process of this movie about, is the evil real or not? I think that the evil is real as long as you believe in it, and you know, for me, it's not like it's not real. It's really like about a mental illness. It's about like a generational trauma that you want to stop going from generation to generation. And I think that what made that movie so interesting to do, because we were kind of like going deep into psychological fear that's not the usual like blood and gory element. It's more, I think, a little more subtle, and maybe will stay with you longer after. It's always about the script. It starts with the log line. It starts with like, oh, this is something I want to hear more about. And then as I'm like reading the script, I'm usually like looking for a new take on horror, a new way of scaring the audience, a new way to not repeat myself and do something that's quite different. And as I was getting into the script was titled Motherland in the first place. I realized that the voice that Casey and Ryan, the writers, brought to the project was so unique. Like the way there is like some poetry beyond the dialogue, beyond the description of the atmosphere, the fear, the daily life of those people. But also there were some mini themes that were kind of like unusual in the movie. Like, yes, this is a story that could remind A Quiet Place, that could remind Bird Box, but there is a psychological layer that in fact is, I think, much more interesting. It's really about, at the end of the day, two kids. One is believing everything that the mother is saying, and the other one is questioning. the family is the center of the movie. It's really the theme. It's how can a mother be the most protective and loving person, but in the same time could become like the most dangerous by holding her kids, her own children, prisoner, maybe to protect them, maybe because it's, we don't know. There is a lot of question being asked in the movie. Is it real or not real? And is she like protecting them, or is she like keeping them prisoner? And that kind of duality was, I think, the most interesting part of the dynamic in the movie. And I wanted to also see like different characters, because they are twins, but they're very different. They have different personality. And the fact that they start fighting is what is going to corrupt that house. That house, by opposition to usual horror movies where the house is like the haunted place, this one is safe. This one is this, kind of like unique sanctuary where they are protected as long as they stay in. The evil is outside, cannot get inside the house. As long as they stay connected to the rope, they are protected. But in fact, what we're going to realize is the fact that they start questioning everything. The house is getting more and more corrupted. And the evil is kind of coming from everywhere inside the place, which I think make it really scary, because that place is, of course, the family.
It pops up differently. At first we can't really see it, and that kind of makes me question, but it pops up differently for each of us because the evil plays to how the person is feeling at the time. So it's like if we do end up seeing it, it'll probably be something that plays to the character's emotions.
And Mama sees the evil, and what you realize about the evil is, if it is real, it's showing itself to her as people in her past, and that's troubling for Mama. And if she's not seeing it, then she's totally hallucinating all of this, which is also scary because she believes it's 100% real, even if it is or if it's not. And that's what you have to see the movie for, to figure out, is it real or is it not? We just clicked, and that's why finding these boys was really important, finding the right two boys that could not only carry the load as actors, but also would be personable, a joy to be around, be professional. Like, all of those things really matter when you're making a movie like this on such a tight budget and a tight time frame. You had to have real pros, and it's hard to find real pros in, these young performers.
My character, Samuel, his relationship with the house is that he loves it. He doesn't want anything bad happening to it. So the house, I'd say, is literally like, I guess, a second mama. So he wants to protect the house. He doesn't want anything bad happening to it because it's the only safe place they can go to without, like, leaving, like, because, like, if you leave the house without any connection to it, like, without touching it, without having anything around, like a rope connected, like, the evil could abduct you. So
for me, the house is their lifeline. The house is what keeps them alive and keep them safe. That's the religious and spiritual aspect of the movie to me. The house is their savior. And for Mama being, not connected to it, she knows for her that means imminent destruction of the family if anyone gets off. So her job is to, at all costs, get these boys to believe that you must stay connected to this house, period. And it's not always easy to do, especially when they start free thinking.
Yeah. The house means to me the house means love to me. It's the house is like a symbol of the blessing of a family and the love of a family. And I feel like the more disbelief that Nolan has, the more the love starts to drain away, which becomes really bad.
In the show, I got to be involved in not only casting, my co-stars, but also helping to shape the story and making sure that it stayed complicated, if you will. Alex and I both, realized we had a lot in common. when we thought about what the story was about, and we wanted to make sure that we kept all of those nuances in there, all of those questions. We wanted to stay in the film. We didn't want everything answered, you know, in an obvious way, but the answers are within the film, maybe your second or third watch. You get closer and closer to some of the answers that you might not have at first watching, which was really important to both of us. And as a director, he was very collaborative, always open to our ideas. I love the way he worked with the children. I mean, not every director really works well with kids, and Alex worked well. But they also had a great acting coach, Andrew, that was with them all day, every day, in their ear, keeping them primed so that when Alex came to them with direction, they were ready to receive it, because Andrew, their coach, kept them, you know, ready to go all day.
Constant meetings, always making sure we were ready to go, make sure we were prepared, make sure we knew our lines. He was great.
Yeah.
Coach, Mr. Andrew. So
It was great working with him. He's such a visionary, such a genius when it comes to this genre, and I loved to see what he did, like the way he orchestrated this, the way he kept everybody playing, just like a conductor. Is that right? Yep. Just like a conductor, he kept everybody playing their music correctly, and he ended up creating this great film, Never Let Go, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Me and AJ, when we first wake up in the movie, and we're like, and it's introducing the audience to us, that was fun.
Mom was watching them in the doorway. That was our first scene all together.
not only is it a thriller, but it's about a family trying to protect each other, trying to stay safe. And Nolan, like, you might be like, oh, this kid's so troubling, but he's not. He's actually trying to find a different way to keep the family safe.
Yeah, I think people should watch it because it's something they've never seen before. It's like an extra genre for horror fans, and I'm so excited for everybody to see it.
I think you have to see it in the theater. One, because it is something you've never seen before, but to experience a movie like this, the sound design is amazing, and it will not be the same watching it at home on your TV or on a computer or on your phone. You have to be in a big theater with surround sound, and you have to hear the sound because you really get transported. You have to see on a big screen all of the colors and the forest and how it comes alive, and it just won't pop the same way on the small screen. So this is a movie you wanna definitely see in the movie theater, and the scares won't hit the same way either.
The evil is something very, very suspicious. It tries to it's mostly trying to get Mama so it can make Mama eat the kids, and if it gets the kids, I don't really know what it's gonna do to the kids, but the evil just wants the kids because when Mama had the kids, the evil got kicked out the house. The rope is connected in the cellar, and the cellar is where they were born and where all the love was created. So the love can't be taken out of the cellar. So when the ropes are in there and they're connected to the rope, it's like the rope has a shield and like it shields them. What I liked was mostly Samuel's character because he listens to his mom, he loves his family mostly. And what I liked about the script was all the scenes and how like it happens. When they were arguing with Mama and like finally the tear dropped and my whole body went, oh, amazing, because like it dropped. I felt all his anger and all his emotion. It was amazing.
The script was very rich in terms of sound, texture, imagery, and that's like a blessing for a director because of course, you know, it's just building from there to just adding and adding and adding and finding the right crew, finding the right collaborators to just build that world and that universe. But it was also for me a different approach of filmmaking, something very different from everything I've done before. Like when I was doing Crawl or The Hills of Eyes or Piranha, they are like very, very different movie and different type of fear. Here it's more like a world that I'm building, and with a lot of symbol and a lot of symbolism everywhere, a lot of elements that are going to be seen on the first watch or not, but a lot of layer. I mean, it's really a movie about layers. Layers of story, layers of psychology, layers of relationship, and has a lot of like great, dark, scary fairy tale. I remember thinking about, who could be Mama, who could be that, angular, like stone in the middle of that structure, someone who can carry the movie and be, in the same time, the protection of those boys, and in the same time, maybe the danger for those boys. And as I was kind of starting thinking about this is where like Ali contacted us, and her team read the script, and she also had fell in love with the story for the same reason all of us with 21 Labs were like so involved. And I remember the first conversation we had, and it was really about like making something that was not just another scary movie, but something more just more interesting and more strong, and maybe something that leave you with something, like my favorite scary movies are the one that when you leave the room, when you leave the theater, something stay with you. I received the script of Never Let Go. At the time it was called Motherland. I think it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and I remember reading it and kind of feeling a different type of fear than the usual fear I can find in other scripts. Something that was a little deeper, a little more unsettling, a little bit more echoing with a deeper theme. Parenthood, the relation that you can have with your parents, what are you going to let behind to your kids, the trauma, the generational trauma that goes from you to your children, and a lot of things that were in fact echoing a fear that I felt as a father more than just by reading or watching movies, something that was very kind of unique and strong. But what really got me right away falling in love with the project was that very singular and unique approach of a modern story through the code of the classic fairy tale. It's really about a situation, like a unique situation. It's about this woman who live in the middle of the forest in a house with her two twin boys, fraternal twins. And it's really about the situation of the world around that's been destroyed and that doesn't exist anymore. Some evil supernatural forces like destroy everything. And they're living inside, and as long as they stay inside the house, they're safe. If they stay connected to the house with the rope around them, when they go out in the forest, they're safe. But there is something around them. And it's really about those two kids looking at their mom and what she's like teaching them. And one believing everything she says, and the other one kind of starting questioning, to the point of, is it real? Is that evil force real? Is the world outside still there? And that kind of like opposition of the twins, and are really like the classical theme that you can find into any kind of cautionary tale about, a situation once upon a time, those two boys, their mom, the one that questions, the one that doesn't question, and how they're going to confront and learn through the process about themselves, but also about how to get free, about how to escape, about how to cut that cord from the house and from their mother. And
looking deeper into the research behind the movie, we were really impressed by the lore that was, that surrounded it. And I think Alex, incorporated the idea that Mama is reading fairy tales to the boys, that in a way she has to tell them a story and keep them captivated so that they don't question her. So this sort of dark fairy tale is definitely the way that Alex looks at it. He jokes that, she's seeing ghosts. She is in a way, but, he talks about the way that she's sort of entombed in this house and the fact that it's a story she's telling herself and a story that she's also telling the boys at the same time. So it is the little red house in the dark, green woods, and it is its own fairy tale. I think people do love to be scared because I think that anything that elicits a deep and palpable emotion, especially that can be shared in like a group experience, is always going to be something that connects us as human beings. I think the ability to feel fear, to resonate with fear, I think that's universal. I think, fear is the undercurrent of everything negative that happens in our lives, whether we intend for it to be or not. So I think it's a very unifying principle. I think audiences will enjoy this because while having that foundation of fear, I think you'll feel incredibly curious about this family. I think you'll really wonder what's going on with Mama. I think you'll find yourself, being mad at Nolan and then yet also feeling sad for Samuel and then mad at Mama and then loving her at the same time. I think we have the ability to pull at people's heartstrings and to make them feel a myriad of emotions that they're not anticipating coming into what's called a horror film, but really we're telling a much more nuanced, complicated drama that just happens to also scare you from time to time. We really wanted to maintain as much authenticity as possible for, a circumstance like this, because we really haven't seen something quite like this, and we don't really have a lot of reference for what it might be for someone to live in circumstances like this. So, for us, it was very, very crucial that the boys have a bit of a feral quality to them, that the whole family function a bit like a small tribe, given that they live, in the wilderness. There's no electricity. The boys have never had access to any other people before. They've never seen a phone. They've never seen a TV. They only get to listen to one record every once in a while when there's a new moon. And having that level of restricted access to extrasensory elements meant that, they might speak a little bit differently. They probably would have an economy of words. They would use like animal sounding calls out in the wild if they ended up, finding a bird or finding a frog or having a moment where they killed a squirrel, something like that, that would show that, they don't need to express themselves, and they wouldn't express themselves in the same way, with the same colloquialisms, with the same sort of like, phrases that we would use in the modern day world. So getting really involved in the casting process and finding kids that felt like they, would plausibly be of this space was incredibly important to us. And just making sure that as much of the dialogue, as much of the word choice that was used was very simple, was very pared down, because so much could be said and so much could be told just, in the performance of the story. The stripped down nature of the script, the subtlety of what was there, was something that we really wanted to preserve. The writers did a phenomenal job of setting the stage for this, and we wanted to bring it down in the most sparse way possible so that people would be guessing the whole time. Is Mama crazy? Is she actually telling the truth? What does she know? What's happening in real life? And Alex was an incredible partner in working to preserve that precious, little delicate moment that was there between Mama and the boys, especially as they only, use their emotion, they only use their frustration, they only share how they really feel when they absolutely have to. So embracing that crescendo of emotion while rooting it in the subtlety was just a very powerful thing for us to be able to do with Alex. You often look and say, like, how did these people come from the same set of parents? They're very different. Nolan is very curious. He's a little bit wary and skeptical. He's a little bit quieter. He's an artist. He really likes to look at the world from various angles, really take his time observing and wondering, what else there might be. He's somebody who is a little bit more reluctant and is tiring of this life and is not afraid to show how he feels about that. AJ, as an actor, is just a complete surprise because one minute he is just making jokes and making hilarious faces and just, dancing and rolling around, and the next minute he's got tears streaming down his face and he's crying over like a horrific situation, and you can't believe that you've just seen these two things within like a couple minute time period. And I think what's really neat about him is that he leans into the quirks that Samuel has. He's not afraid to really be the slightly odd child. He's not afraid to be very committed to like Samuel's diligence and his being this kind of martinet by we do this and we don't do this, and this is how the rule book goes. I love watching him perform that character to a T, and still be able to just like snap out of it and run outside and make everybody laugh. I was just incredibly impressed at what Jeremy and Victoria were able to do with our home and with our sets and our locations, and to make them feel so alive, so tangible, so palpable. It was just created such a visceral response being in that house and watching it come to life at their hands. I think that watching Jeremy work with Alex and Maxime, as you mentioned, even the wallpaper choices, and especially the way that they would frame these shots. We have this beautiful shot of Mama leaving the house with the candle, at the first light of dawn, and she has the candle at one point in her left hand, and the way that the flame bleeds up against the wallpaper, and this sort of contrast of the blue light of the exterior coming in, and that kind of haunting feeling against this warmth of this woman sort of holding the sanctity of her home right before she crosses the threshold is so captivating. And then she switches her candle to her right hand and walks outside, and the world changes from there. But in that precious moment, we feel like this warmth of this home. We feel the peace of this home that she's created, and yet we know she's struggling with so much. So I don't think that would have been possible without, Jeremy and Victoria and Maxime, working seamlessly. And Maxime paints with light, so you feel that as it touches every frame. You feel that as it touches the sofas, the ambient light, is there just as much as what he, uses in the exterior of the house that's coming in. And it creates a really atmospheric, beautiful setting that is deeply chilling. Character is something that she loves to do. She does an extreme amount of research. She, worked very much on the dialect so it would sound authentic, and she really wanted to fully embody who June or Mama is. She really loved the fact that the house was constructed from a pre-existing home, and that the doorways and the walls and the ceilings were, real, and they were small, and they were, befitting of a time period in which that house was probably built, and that it had just, this gritty feeling of being lived in and being, this warm but very sad, sullen place. So for her getting into character, she also, lost weight to appear that she was starving. She did a lot of really heavy workouts because she needed to be running and chopping wood and using the crossbow. And she just spent a lot of time researching what somebody who lived in a circumstance like this might have experienced and felt, so that she could bring as much authenticity to the character as possible. To me, Mama is a woman who is just trying to do the best that she can with limited resources while battling a lot of inner demons. Mama feels very responsible in many ways for this life that is kind of imposed upon her children. I mean, I think Mama struggles with the fact that she is in many ways imprisoning her own kids, but believes truly that it is for their own safety, because she recognizes that the evil that has been cast outside of their house, that constantly lives in threat of haunting them, touching them, killing them, invading their safe space, is always lurking, and that she's to blame for that. I think she lives with a lot of guilt that she's had to tell certain lies in order to protect her children. And I think she lives with a great degree of doubt as she vacillates between what is real and what isn't, what has become sort of commonplace and expected after 10 plus years of being back in this home when you have no one to talk to and all you can do is try to keep your kids alive every single day with the changing elements, and what that kind of mental duress might be like for somebody like Mama who's just struggling for her own sanity while trying to be the best mother that she can.
By definition, twin brothers, even fraternal twins, are like the mirror of each other. But I wanted to explore the difference when they come to 10, 11, 12-year-old. They start having a different approach of things and different questioning. They start like saying, "Okay, am I supposed to love a person that's like with me all the time? Can I hate my brother? Can I love my brother? Can we fight? Can we not fight? How can we survive? And what's the future for us?" Because they have a very bleak perspective on the future. What's the future? They have to stay connected to the house with that rope. There is no more food. There is no more resources. So what's tomorrow? And starting from there, I just saw like two characters that were so, I mean, that was in the script, but we tried to develop that even more to make Samuel, who's more like the second in command, who's the enforcer, who wants to get his mother's love no matter what, and will follow her to whatever she decides, no matter what is the most awful decision that she could take. And on the other side, you have Nolan, who is more like the one that just doesn't want to see the shadow projected on the wall, and who wants to turn and see the light, who wants to see the truth, who wants to question everything. The same way she was questioning, because when she was a kid, she ran away from that house. So somehow Nolan and her are very, very similar personality. And that creates some kind of jealousy for Samuel, who can see that there is a shorter hand between Mama and Nolan that he doesn't have. And that triangle of a relationship and tension and grudges is so fun to explore within that world of the house and the forest. As I read the script, there were no other choice. We needed to find a house in the middle of that forest. We needed to see, every time you look by the window, we needed to see the element around, because everything is tied together. There is no electricity, so all the light come from outside. So every time I look through the kitchen window or the living room window or the dining room window, I want to see the forest, because the forest is that scary element. The forest is that place where the evil lives and wait for them to come out, wait for them to let go, wait for them to, cut the rope and question and be an easy prey to catch. So we had to find like a house. But of course, shooting in the middle of the forest, come with a lot of problems. But what you get is so strong and it's so unique because it's a feeling of reality. Like the first day Ali stepped in the house, she felt she was in a real place. She felt like all the furniture, all the room were real. There was something so scary about it somehow. And in fact, the house that we found and the place that where we're shooting is a place that has some kind of bad reputation in terms of like a little shady in the middle of the forest place that used to be a real house that has a lot of stories about it. And when she came back, pregnant with the kids, she decided to just put all that darkness away and just be that mother for those kids and protect them. But that darkness didn't disappear, didn't vanish. It's not something that you can just put under the rug. That darkness stayed around the house, was cast away, was like lurking in the woods. That supernatural being that's like looking for, that supernatural being outside is Mama's grudge. It's Mama's like abuse. It's all the dark side that she accumulated. A dark side that in some situation protected her and protected her children, because she did also some very bad thing to save her own life. Those elements are very important, but that darkness that used to protect her is something that she doesn't want anymore. And I think as a parent, it's something that we all feel, when we have like children, we start thinking about, I don't want to expose my children to my darkness. I don't want to spoil them. I want them to protect them from that. And I want to keep that darkness away. I want to keep my past. I want to keep everything that's not what I want to use with them, but it's still there. And that's what the movie is about. It's about how that darkness is lurking around the house, lurking around them, ready to touch them and to infect them. And can we ever get rid of the darkness that our parents are leaving for us? And can we ever, cut the rope?
The boys are thinking about, Nolan is thinking about leaving the house because he's starting to believe that Mama is faking it, that what she's saying is not real, and that we should go out, let go of the rope, and go find some food and figure things out in a better way. And Samuel doesn't want that to happen. He wants to keep it how it is, which is also very definite characteristics. Samuel's the believer and Nolan is the challenger. So definitely an important scene in the movie. And funny story about that scene, me and Samuel, we came up with that scene during improv. So we were improving for preparation, and we ended up building and improving the scene as we go, and it's a part of the movie now. The rope keeps the family tied together and to the house and to each other. So if they ever, and they also have whistles, as alarms, somebody's off the rope or something bad had just happened. But they have that, and the rope, it keeps them connected to the love of the house, which then keeps them safe from the evil as they step away from the holy space. He has a great eye for movies in this genre. He knows, he's had a lot of experience, so he knows what it should look like, and he's great with frames and with tips on how to make the thing look creepy, or how to make it seem scary, or he always has different tips to make you like get better in the situation. And he also has an amazing eye for the shots and what they're supposed to look like. He's an overall great director, one that you really would like to see in multiple different places. Yeah, I was definitely scared. Definitely scared. I was very scared when I first read it. I was scared, I was disturbed, I was emotional. I was feeling a wave of different things that I yet have not experienced reading a script before. And I love that. So this was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me, and I enjoyed every second of it. Nolan is a 11-year-old boy who is very courageous. He's a great leader. He's an amazing hunter. He's funny when he wants to be. He's serious when he needs to be. And he's emotional when he's emotional. Amazing. Hands down, amazing. She is so nice and kind. She's an amazing actress, and it's great to work with her. It's been great. He's a very funny, very polite, very open kid. He's fun to hang out with, on and off the camera. Cracks jokes, is very focused in the scenes when he needs to be focused. He's amazing. He's really awesome. They are starving little boys who live in the forest, which would definitely make you dirty sometimes. Yeah, they work hard. They lack water sometimes, so they don't get to shower as often. So they look dirty. And then the clothes, they don't really wash them. They just scrub them down and hang them up to dry, so they're not the cleanest. And then, yeah, that'll definitely get you into character. I really love doing the stunts, and I like that thrill of like doing like whatever I need to do. Yeah, it's really fun. We got to go to the stunt's house to practice, which was awesome. We got to talk about it, and we made sure, while making the scene look so real, to make sure that we were safe, which was also a challenge, which was also fun. So I think that may be my favorite part as well.
I just love being on the edge of my seat. I love having sort of a mystery to solve. You know, mysteries are, my favorite genre of books, of literature. So I just love being transported into a world that feels so unrealistic and uncommon to me. It's thrilling. Well, I get a chance to play something I've never played before. I've never been a scene like this before. I've never had the challenge of sort of leading a cast with two very young performers and having to sort of shepherd us all along through this story. So I saw it as a wild challenge, and I love this sort of psychological aspects of it, the generational trauma aspect of it. I think is really interesting to me. I hope they'll feel like it's something they've never seen before. This is a very odd family in a very odd situation that we haven't quite seen before. I think you have the usual scares, the things that keep us on the edge of our seat. We walk that line of what's real and what's not real, and I think that's sort of the terrifying aspect of it. And I hope they'll feel like they saw this beautiful, scary nightmare. That's how I like to call it. I think, we need to get back to the movie theaters. We all know as an industry, we've all been through so much, and our streamers are great. Watching it at home with our, our kids and popcorn and getting up and, coming back is great, but there's still nothing like seeing something on a big screen and sharing the common experience with other people and showing movies the way filmmakers intend for us to see them.
I've had one of my best experiences as a cinematographer so far, and I don't think it's going to happen again soon, which was shooting with one of the most beautiful actresses I know, and having her pushing me to shooting her into what she's really going through. I would have done everything to respect that beauty. Prosthetics were so efficient and so well prepped by Alex that you didn't need it to enhance it. Basically, you have that skin pads on the necks, or the heavy makeup on the grandma. The David by itself, they talk by themselves in our shots. And the fact that we're shooting such a movie, unusual cinematography for an horror movie, you don't need to do a close-up or an insert on the presence of the devil around these other characters. They're there, and because they are so shocking, they could be there even in a wide lens. You would feel the presence of someone that is not supposed to be there. I think that people will be really excited about this movie for that sensation about doubt. The fact that as soon as the story begins, you will asking yourself who's right, who's wrong, and you're gonna go up and down a roller coaster for all the story. And you're gonna finish by still asking you who's right, who's wrong, but still now feeling guilty of having believed something that was absolutely right. The presence of candles into the cinematographic aspect of this movie, it's more like designing your background. The excuse to use warm lights comes more from the fireplace inside the house. And it helps also to keep that vision that Alex and myself had on the very beginning. We talked about how to frame the movie, and then how would have been like the real photography of the movie was Dutch school and completely different, like a painter like Caravaggio. Both of them using natural lights to light the subjects. The Dutch school goes into an extremely soft source from windows, from the exterior, natural lights. Caravaggio was much more contrasty and much more violent, a perfect example when you're shooting horror. And then that transition in between daylights and night lights would be the key. Dutch school by day, swapping into a Caravaggio styles by night, and much more contrasty, much more scary. It is relatively complicated to shoot a beautiful forest. A beautiful forest, because you see it by eye, it has its own dimension and the perspective. When you're trying to shoot a forest into a camera, it's often absolutely flat. So you're creating that dimension, helping by lights. So choosing the right time of the day where sun will hit the woods on the side lights, and and to these also a lot of we call it like a smoke effects in order to enhance the shape of lights, and this gives also the right perspective to the forest. The The approach of Alex for every character is more into a human point of view, something more about introducing the character into then maybe sensibility and the real human character in order for the audience to understand him. Not loving him or hating him. It's more like an introduction, but in the most human point of view as possible. And that enhance the degradation into the storytelling of an horror movie, which is the pain in our movie, the starvation and the fatigue, and that incredible doubt about not knowing whom to believe around your mother or your brother or whatever is around yourself. First reading that I had from the script, it's not just excitement, it's about the fact that the doubt that came out from the story totally like catch me by surprise. We also, because we are now living a period very uncertain for many reasons, like politically reasons, so the life became pretty difficult through COVID and again politics, if I may repeat myself, and facing now that doubt inside a family between two brothers and a mother, and being unable, while reading pages by pages, to understand who's right and who's wrong, puts you in a situation where you're reflecting about your own decision, about what is happening every day, where every single word from someone else can make your point of view radically change. And that's the point that really makes me extremely excited about the project. So the first conversation that we had about the vision of the movie in a cinematography point of view was, the first step was the way we were going to frame this movie. Separated in two different lines, the safety of the house and the dangers outside of it. The way we were going to shoot the point of view of the children and the one from Mama. The base was basically giving always a space, an empty space onto the frame, to constantly give the impression that something could happen. Danger could appear from anywhere, and then translate it into a more classical inside the house that will evolve during the storytelling, and then bring from the way we were framing outside inside the house, and increasing the danger and the losing of safeness around the house.
There were things that, they found that really brought that authenticity. The reality of, like, we don't have running water, so we have a well. We don't have electricity, so we make our own candles out of resin, and so we are always carrying candles, and it's lit by either fire or candlelight. Like, all those details that really transport us to this family's reality. And I think the set and the design and made that all possible. And it's just one set, the house, but it has everything that we need to bring the story to life. This movie is really helped by the cinematography, the look and feel of the movie. It's a beautifully shot, but that's also like another character in the movie, because it tells us what the world is. It sets us right in a place, and I think you'll realize the minute you start watching this movie, you're in a different time and place. You are not, you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. You've gone to another place, and a big part of that was the lighting design, and Alex's vision also for what the movie is. And the sounds will be really important. The sounds, there's a lot of hyper reality, that we're going to be working with and dealing with, that I think will be really very poignant to the story. To understand, who would people be if you never left a house and you were sequestered and tethered or stuck, right? And tortured in a way. So I did research along those lines, trying to really understand what that would be like. What would they sound like? What would their language be like? While we're making a movie, so we had to make things relatable or understandable, I still knew that it was important to interject, even subtleties of what it might be like if you lived off the grid in the middle of the woods for 10 years. And also, I studied schizophrenia because I feel like, mama is not quite mentally sound, and I think whether she's suffering from schizophrenia or some dissociative personality disorder, after 10 years being in the middle of nowhere, only talking to two babies who then grow to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like, you're pretty limited in your ability to express yourself and to function. And so how does that affect a normally functioning person? If she were so, how would that affect her? How would that change her, right? So I tried to, dig down as many avenues as I could to sort of bring a reality to who I think this woman might be, and then discover how that sat down in my body. AJ had to do the real work of acting in many ways and find this character. I had to do that for Mama. I don't carry Mama in my body. So he had to do the real work of what actors do. And I was really proud of him, and he's proud of himself because he knew that he rose to the level, right? And he did exactly what is needed of him, which was expected and hoped for from him. He's worked hard at it. He's taken it seriously, and he's a great yin to Percy's yang, and Percy's done his own work, trust me. Yeah, he has to carry all the emotion of the movie, and he's had to work hard accessing that in his own body, getting to those dark places, letting that emotion flow. He's had to do his own work. Well, I have always loved this genre, especially this level of horror, let's just say. Like The Others was one of my all-time favorite movies in this genre. Get Out has been one of my favorite movies in this genre. The Quiet Place. These are movies that in this genre I really loved, and this movie hearkened all three of those movies to me. There were elements of each one of those movies that I found within this movie, which really got me excited. I loved the idea of having a family like this be seen in a way that a Black family has never been seen before. I loved the idea of being out in the wilderness, in the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Again, something I hadn't seen before. The idea of being tethered to the house felt fresh to me. Harkened back to A Quiet Place. I remember when I first read that script, I was blown away by that. So it had many elements that really excite me. And playing a mother again, but a different kind of mother than I've ever played, also really interested me. Mama is very complicated. I mean, I think most characters are, most people are, but her complication runs really deep. She is a fierce mama bear, in one sense, and she's trying to take care of her children the best way she can, but she's also trying to hold on to her sanity at the same time, right? And because of that, she's forced to make decisions and do things that don't always feel very motherly, but they are what she needs to do to survive and to ultimately take care of her children. She's tortured, I think she herself wonders if this evil that's surrounding her is real. Is she a bit schizophrenic? Is it really real? Is she making it up? Is she really doing the right things by these kids, keeping them sequestered here? Because technically what she's doing is, she's torturing them too. And I think she questions throughout the entire movie, is she doing the right thing? Fundamentally, I think she feels like she is, but that's sort of a big question of the movie for me. Is she really seeing evil, or is this some sort of, mental dissociative situation we're dealing with here? And is she really just torturing these children, or is this evil real? And that's what you watch the movie for, to find out.